Call to order the regular meeting of the McAlester City Council, Tuesday, March 10th. We do have a quorum, and we have Colby Clapp here from the Maine, Oklahoma Church of Christ to lead us in invocation and pledge.
Let's pray together. Father, we ask you to watch over this town, to watch over these men and women who choose to serve your community, the people here that belong to you. Give them, Father, a blessing of wisdom. Give them the blessing of a love for mercy. And give them, Father, a passion for justice as well. And may what is right and what is good bring you glory. And may this town thrive and succeed as we serve each other with hearts modeled after you. And Father, help this meeting to go well and help good decisions and prosperous things be done. Bless us tonight. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Close your call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Cox?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Harrison?
Here.
Pritchard?
Here.
Mayor?
Here. Our next order of business is recognition and awards, and they're in the order in the agenda. I'm going to change a little bit because our employee of the month isn't here right now, so I will do him last. But I'm going to start by reading a proclamation in recognition of Women's History Month. Whereas the theme of Women's History Month of 2020 is Valiant Women of the Vote, we honor the brave women who fought to win suffrage rights for women and the women who continue to fight for the voting rights of others. And whereas in 1980, the National Women's History Project was founded by in Santa Rosa, California, by Molly Murphy McGregor, Mary Roth's daughter, Maria Cuevas, Pamela Hammett, and Betty Morgan to broadcast women's historical achievements. And whereas in 1987, Congress declared the entire month as National Women's History Month, and a special presidential proclamation is issued yearly. And whereas we, the American people, can celebrate the important role of women from all races and nationalities whose commitment shaped our nation and the world, which is often overlooked, whether in the field of politics, arts, science, legal, environment, and more, women's historical messages, milestones can be used to educate young and old alike. Now, whereas the past focus has been aimed to help nations worldwide eliminate discrimination against women, it also focuses on helping women gain full and equal participation in global development. And whereas the United Nations celebrating International Women's Day and the International Women's Years 1975, in 1977, the United Nations General Assembly invited member states to proclaim March 8th as the United Nations Day for Women's Rights and World Peace. And whereas there are many ways to develop and encourage girls and women of all ages, one, host a women's panel with speakers discussing their journey to success and answer questions. Two, connect to a local women's leadership conference. Choose women from your workplace or your community and consider being a sponsor. Three, promote a local networking opportunities for women, sending a representative who will share their experience and share it online. Whereas the City of McAlester acknowledges the services rendered from City Councilwoman Gladys Murphy and the generous donations given by Wanda Bass and others. In addition, there are many women and girls whose commitment to our community have raised our consciousness and knowledge. Now, therefore, I, John Brown, Mayor of the City of McAlester, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as Women's History Month in McAlester, Oklahoma, and urge my fellow citizens to observe this day by supporting women's activities that promote health, encouragement, education, and safety. And I think we have someone here that wanted to speak for a few minutes. Lily Jones.
Hi, my name is Lily Jones, and I'm a junior at McAlester High School, and I'm also a Girl Scout. I'm an ambassador, and that's the highest 2 levels of Girl Scouts you can be. The girls I brought with me today, they've all earned their bronze, silver, and gold award. Myself, I will receive my gold award in April, and the gold award is the highest award, and I did that by starting a recycling program for the entire public schools of McAlester. And it's going a little bit further than we thought it was, and it's awesome. And I've also got the honor to receive the Outstanding Student of the Year award for Pride in McAlester.
Fantastic. Would you like to take this back and have it for the Girl Scouts? Yeah, we'll take a picture first. I forgot I'm a politician.
I said Buffalo Pride.
Good job. I'm going to be jumping all around tonight, so we're going to go to the Employee of the Month now. The Employee of the Month for February 2020 is Robert Bobby Cox. A couple of months ago, Lieutenant Cox, eating at a local restaurant along with officers Kevin Bishop and Sergeant Jeremy Orr, as they were eating, another patron who was dining with his wife rose from his seat and grabbed at his throat and was unable to speak. Lieutenant Cox observed the actions and deduced that the man had an airway obstruction. Lieutenant Cox approached the man and put his arms around him from behind. Cox then administered abdominal thrusts, which resulted in the object being dislodged and the airway opened. Officer Bishop had already called for an ambulance, but when it became clear that the emergency had passed, the ambulance was canceled. It turned out that the man with the obstruction was a longtime city employee from the street department. Chief Wansick later spoke with this employee, and he expressed gratitude from both he and his wife for Lieutenant Cox's actions. While this is one incident, Lieutenant Cox is known for his compassion for the citizens and officers of the department. He often attends public meetings to offer perspective from the police department concerning various matters. Lieutenant Cox also spends countless hours being the range master for the department. This entails overseeing the firearms training as well as maintaining the firing range. While Lieutenant Cox has been in charge of the range, vast improvements have been completed to allow additional training. For these reasons, we concur Lieutenant Bobby Cox is deserving of this award. Ken, would you come down? Got a couple things for you. You're kind of a politician.
On his way.
Yep.
And the employee of the month. Thanks, Bobby.
Bottle of water there. Right. Congratulations.
Fist bump.
Congratulations. I've had the flu.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
Good job.
Before we do the next proclamation, we have a short video to play. You got. You got it.
Mm-hmm. I have girls stay too this when they become juniors. What's very odd. Didn't she go? I thought, I think that's how it started.
McAlester is a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to enhance and beautify our community. I'm just a few. I've been president of Pride McAlester for about 9 years, been involved with the organization for about 10. Pride McAlester is involved in many projects, marking storm drains, painting curbs, planting trees. We help put together the dog park and the community garden. The thing we're most known for are community cleanups.
Pride McAlester expanded very much under his leadership. We went from just doing a couple of cleanups a year to doing monthly community volunteer days. Because they say that the best way to make a change is to live that change. And Justin truly does. He's probably the largest champion for our small community.
Volunteers like Justin are critical to the success of anything the city does. He's an incredible asset to the city of McAlester with all of the things he's done. We wish we had 1,000 more of them because we'd be unstoppable.
One of the biggest accomplishments I feel that the community's made over the past 10 years is the introduction of a city recycling center. There's a partnership with Cowboys, who employs adults with disabilities. Also a partnership in the community with the Choctaw Nation also has a recycling program.
We ended up getting a recycling program going, and it's been so successful. We actually just had to expand our employees on it. It could not have been done without him and Pride in McAlester.
Well, what drives me with my involvement in Pride in McAlester is I like to see the change that I can make. It may be a change that no one else is doing. And so instead of waiting for someone to come along, I enjoy throwing out the ideas and just seeing what we can do in our community.
He is an idea generating machine. He is a shining example of how far passion can really get you.
Yeah, fire hydrants are kind of a unique project that we've started. The city has around 900 fire hydrants, and they are color coded. So we have 4 colors that we paint them. So those colors that we paint the fire hydrants indicate the pressure on that hydrant. I've always been interested in beekeeping, and I started a couple of hives. It's now grown into 8 hives total.
What I love is when he got into the beekeeping, because he's truly passionate about it. He knows the value of it and its impact on the world around it.
That's the kind of person he is as far as he's technologically conscious. It's not just picking up trash or cleaning something up. It's also all of the things that we need to do to make the world a better place. And Justin is a key advocate of doing that.
Volunteers can really come together and make a community their own.
I have no doubt that Justin's efforts in McAlester have been able to demonstrate ways that other communities can take on these same impactful programs.
Justin, congratulations. Extremely proud of you. It could not happen to a better man. Thank you for everything you do for the city of McAlester, Pride in McAlester, and the state of Oklahoma.
Justin, thank you for being an absolutely dedicated volunteer for our community, and congratulations on winning this award.
Whereas our city benefits from the hard work and dedication of volunteers that help keep our city moving forward in the right direction, and whereas volunteers are motivated by the simple satisfaction of helping their fellow citizens and making their community a better place to live, and whereas Justin Few is a resident who commits countless hours towards making McAlester a better place through board service, program organization, project participation, and advocacy, and whereas Justin's dedication to beautification and sustainability efforts help shape the quality of life for McAlester citizens. And whereas Justin Few was honored by Keep Oklahoma Beautiful with the statewide champion volunteer in 2019 for his decade of volunteerism with Pride in McAlester. And whereas Justin leads by example and helps encourage an environment in which volunteers can flourish. Now, therefore, I, John Brown, Mayor of the City of McAlester, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim March 11th, 2020 as Justin Few Volunteerism Day in the City of McAlester.
Thank you, Justin, what you did.
Thanks, Justin.
Whatever.
Thank you.
All right, now all the fun stuff is over with, so we'll start with citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address. Council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. Didn't have anyone sign up. Is there anyone in the audience? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council, will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda or considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of A, approval of minutes from February 11th, 2020, regular meeting of the McAlester City Council. B, approval of claims for February 19th, 2020 through March 3rd, 2020. C, concur with the mayor's appointment of Travis Reed to both the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment for terms to expire March 10th, 2023. D, consider and act upon indefinitely postponing tort claim filed by Larry Bishop. E, concur with mayor's appointment of David Beal and Paul Perry to the McAlester Library Advisory Board for terms expiring December 31st, 2024. F, consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign an engagement letter with Finley and Cook PLLC for audit services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. G, consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding between Oklahoma Department of Public Safety for and on behalf of the Department of Public Safety Troop Division 90, Indian Nation Turnpike and Southeastern Expo Center to provide space to DPS. H, consider and act upon ratification of the Code of Conduct for the City of McAlester, originally adopted October 27th, 2009. There have been no changes to the document. And I concur with mayor's appointment of Randy Wengstrom to the Housing Authority for a term to expire March 31st, 2023. Would anyone like anything removed?
C.
Anyone else?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone else? Take a motion in a second to approve items A, B, D, E, F, G, and H. Motion, Councilman Cox, second Councilman Smith. Call to Councilman Reed. Any further discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison. Yes. Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item C.
Mr. Mayor, can you kind of tell me what the reasoning was behind this?
Because Travis has always been extremely involved with any zoning, and he is probably one of the most qualified people we have in the city to fit that position.
I've really struggled on whether to say this or not, but I think it needs to be. So I want to apologize in advance for what I'm going to say because it might be a little bit rambling, but it also will be something that is genuinely a concern of mine. Before I ran for city council and in the history of McAlester, it's been kind of a sordid history. We've had great people serve. We've had great people in this community, and we still do. I consider it an honor to get to serve with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to be elected to be here. But in that past as well, we've had a lot of issues with, I think fiscal problems, and then we've had a lot of issues with character. I'm not saying that about Travis one bit. But what I've heard before I ran and since I've ran and I've vehemently fought against and have had a lot of things said about me personally as well is that there's a lot of cronyism in City Hall and there's a lot of good old boy system. And unfortunately, I think this looks like that. And I think it represents that. And I'm not trying to dog your appointment and I'm not trying to blatantly dog you. So please don't take it that way. But my concern here is that Councilman Reed has already served. He's no longer on here. He chose not to run again. Planning and zoning is a completely different board, but it's a board nonetheless. I appreciate his willingness to do it, but I think that by continuing to keep the segment very small, when we have had really good diversity happen on this council, we've had good diversity happen in our city staff, and we have good diversity throughout the community, I think it needs to be somebody else. And it's your prerogative to appoint, but I don't agree.
I would just counter with saying that it makes sense to appoint the person that you think is the best qualified, no matter where they are.
I agree with that. I don't think he's the best qualified, nor do I think this looks good on this council, you or our city.
Any other, Council Smith?
I guess I'm one of Travis's cronies because I'm a friend, but I think he's highly qualified. He has total integrity. I don't think he would ever make any decision based on friendship or cronyism. I think he would look at the situation and make a judgment. I would trust him implicitly, and I think he'd be a good choice.
Anyone else?
What is the council's role in this process?
It's kind of advice and consent.
Comment then. I think that the comprehensive plan that we adopted, I don't know, in August of last year, um, is something we spend a lot of time on. Is very crucial for this community moving forward. I'm concerned that based upon former Councilman Reed's positions that he took while on council, that he is going to be hostile to adopting a lot of the things that are going to be essential under this plan. And for that reason, I'm not sure that he is the best person to do this. He has openly, at his time on council, has openly been against a lot of zoning changes, a lot of modifications, things that are essential to enacting this plan. And so if we have a planning commission made up of people that are hostile to the recommendations of the plan, it's not that we can't implement it, but I think it's going to make it more difficult. And I certainly can't support starting from that position.
And I would just counter with a different interpretation to the plan is not necessarily hostile to the plan. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion and a second to appoint, I'm assuming? Motion, Councilman Smith. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion, second, Councilman Brown. Any further discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Cox,
Abstain since it was my position that was vacated.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard.
No.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item I. Councilman Pritchard.
This is just an education thing for me. I don't know much about the housing authority. And I don't even know who's in charge of the housing authority. So I don't know who I'm asking, but could we get a presentation at some point about the activity of the housing authority, what they have going on? I'd like to know more about that.
Robert Way is the chair.
Robert Way.
Yeah.
We will have that put together and get that to an upcoming council meeting.
I don't think we have quite enough presentation, so I wanted to add one more.
And I will tell you guys on this one, this has been the hardest one to fill, to get somebody to take this spot.
No, really.
So yeah, when I had somebody to agree, and then something came up and they couldn't take it. So
Well, I make a motion to concur with the appointment.
yeah. Is there a second? Second, Councilman Smith. Any discussion?
Mayor, do they meet once a month?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
okay,
it's at 4:00 on
okay,
the first Monday, I think, every month.
okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're now on to a public hearing. All persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the City Charter. Tonight, the hearing is an ordinance creating Chapter 82 offenses and nuisances, Article 7, nuisances, Division 5, disorderly house, McAlester City Code, amending Chapter 48 to create Chapter 82 offenses and nuisances, Article 7, nuisances, Division 5, disorderly house, repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing for severability. I would take a motion and second to open the public hearing. Motion, Vice Mayor Stevens, second, Councilman Smith. Any discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Stevens,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we're now in a public hearing. If anyone would like to address it, please come forward. Seeing no one, I take a motion and second to close the public hearing. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're now on to agenda item number 1, submission and presentation of the 5-year capital improvement plan for 2021 through 2024-25.
Excuse me.
Just the first.
Yeah, okay.
Evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to introduce you tonight the 5-year capital improvement plan for the city of McAlester. A lot of this plan is got a lot of wants in it, but there are a number of these projects that have actually will be funded in the upcoming years due to funding that the citizens of McAlester have put in place for the organization. So I'm proud to present this as we go forward tonight. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. I'm going to highlight some of the areas that we'll be focusing on in the year 2020, 2021. But I want to give you somewhat of an idea of the magnitude of the situation over the next 5 years. If you look at the last column on your right, you'll see a total wants or needs of about $32 million. If you break that down into the department needs and focus mainly on just those departments, you can see that public utilities and public works constitute almost $24 million of that $32 million. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, knowing that our infrastructure is in great need of repair and maintenance. That's about 75% of the total capital needs over the next 5 years. We've kind of broken it down as to the departments. I'm not going to line item each number by each department. But what I'd like to do is focus on the middle section, project types. As you can see, we've identified about $6 million worth of projects over the next 5 years in water. Vehicles and equipment, another $5.9 million. Streets, investing about $9 million into our streets. Wastewater, an additional $4 million. Miscellaneous of 6.6, and then some other miscellaneous items. What I expressed to you a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the upcoming budget for the city of McAlester is what a great opportunity we have going forward, which we hadn't had in the past, because we have dedicated funding mechanisms in place to help us with a lot of our capital needs, especially when it comes to infrastructure. As you can see, we estimate about $6.25 million in stormwater revenue during that 5-year period. We have our landfill fee, which continues to maintain our landfill at $400,000. The county tax, $200,000. That's for police and fire, or for fire, excuse me. Our IT fund, which is a fee that was put on our fines and penalties, about $480,000. And then you can see the infrastructure fund, which generates about $2 million, $2.1 million, somewhere around there, for a total of $10 million. So out of the $32 million that you see up there, about $17 million of this is funded over the next 5 years. Some of the areas of interest that we'll be looking at in the future, and a lot of these projects came out of the Stormwater Committee, is what you're going to see tonight is a request to fund Sonia Way Canal. That's a 470-foot project of that canal that sits behind Sonia Way and on the other side of Wall's department store. That canal area back in there, this is a continuation of the concrete channel, and we'll continue to concrete that channel all the way up to the highway year after year, producing these projects. I think that project's about 400,000. And you're going to see that project later on tonight. Newton Circle drainage, Kiamichi Drive drainage. Sonia Way, we have another problem with separated drainage and sinkholes. That is another project that is slated and has gone through the committee. Tanglewood Drive, that's a new one for all of us. Tanglewood is going to become a connector to the new shopping center. Tanglewood Drive has been coming apart on us for years. It has a lot of base problems in there. We get a lot of calls from the public day in and day out for Tanglewood Drive. It connects over to Peaceable. Peaceable is going to become one of the connectors to that shopping center. You have Hunter Park drainage, and then I talk about numerous manholes, drainage pipes, and eroded areas. When I say numerous manholes, I'm talking about hundreds of manholes that are deteriorated. A lot of them are the old brick structures that are coming apart on us. They really can't be fixed unless you try to put a plastic liner in them, which is expensive and difficult to do. Drainage pipes, as you can imagine, have come apart with our expansive soils and just eroded areas across the city. So a lot of good projects in the upcoming year. As you were presented some of the drainage projects that have been done over the last 6 months or 8 months, and I think that was over 1 million pounds of materials that have been removed out of this city, just cleaning up some of these ditches around the city so this water can flow through. Our street projects, and I want to kind of put a disclaimer on our street projects right off the bat, because we are currently going through a program, and I put our special projects engineer on this. He is looking at the pavement index report that we received about 7-8 years ago. We've also put traffic counts out on a lot of the streets that have been identified for replacement or reconstruction. So what we're doing right now is we're tying that pavement index report to traffic counts to make sure that we get the biggest bang for our buck as we move forward with overlays and reconstruction of the city. I can tell you that first and foremost, Pierce Street will be completed, and that work's going to start here pretty darn soon. Just to refresh everybody's mind, what happened on Pierce Street is we went in there to do an overlay project, and when we got part of the top off that street, we discovered very quickly that was all clay soils. It was very wet. It's very flat in there. It doesn't drain. And by the time we figured out whether or not we could use a lime material to stabilize it, what kind of rock, to what depth we had to utilize, it had gotten late in the year. The asphalt plants had closed, and there was no reason to go in there, rebuild that street, have the water from the winter and the cold destroy that street, and then have to go back in there and build it this spring. So we've tried to maintain that street. We were able, before everything closed down last year, because half of that street we were able to put an overlay on it. It was the lower part that fell apart on us. So we'll be in there in the next couple of weeks rebuilding that street, and we hope to have that completed very quickly. But that is number one on our list for this year. The rest of these projects are streets that had been on the list that were left over from last year. We will get to these projects as we move forward. But I think this will change somewhat. Yes, sir.
What's your plan out at the cemetery?
Just to do an overlay on some of those roads out there. We've got a lot of chuck holes, a lot of degradation on the side where the water runs. Those streets are getting in very poor shape. It's a very easy fix. We can go in there and lay a large amount of asphalt in a short period of time and get out of there.
Okay, do we use perpetual care funds for that?
You can. Our perpetual care funds, I believe, we're limited somewhat in using interest, some of the interest money. There are some restrictions on that, but we can certainly look at that.
Is there any way to fix that where it's better than it is now in terms of the drainage and crumbling at the edges?
Councilman, there's always better ways to do it. It's time, materials, equipment, and personnel. And you try to weigh the pros and cons of everything. So if we go in there to do the drainage, you're pulling the great all, dump trucks, and operators off of concrete panel replacements, street overlays, and drainage ditches inside the city limits. So you have limited amount of use inside of our cemeteries. You have a tremendous amount of use on our streets. And we could end up with, if we can do some drainage projects in the city, might eliminate a couple of flooding problems in the future.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because, the way it is, most people drive off the street onto the grass. Mm-hmm. And it really, to me, it'd be hard to do anything if you still permit that.
Sure.
Like That's the only option, isn't it?
It is. Yes, sir. Some of the upcoming utility projects, our water plant, as you're aware, we're responsible for the capital at the water plant. At the last meeting, we talked a few minutes or a couple of seconds about the transformer out there that's 60 years old and is not a transformer that's kept on the shelf. That transformer something could happen to it any day and we would have no system to power that water plant. So what we've done is we've found a transformer, used transformer, rebuilt transformer for $41,000. And the goal will be to replace this one and then send this one in to have it repaired and have it as a backup in the future. These are little things that we come across as we're going through the process. Our clear well, we've talked for over a year about the very large leak that we have in one side of that clear well. That's a 1 million gallon clear well. It's a 2 million gallon clear well, but it's isolated 1 million on each side. One side is out of service because of the leak. We have had, I don't know how many visits from companies to come and look at this clear well and determine what is the best method in order to repair this thing. We've come up with, ISG has come up with a couple of companies who believe that there is no problem with putting a plastic liner inside this thing, being able to seal those cracks in those joints and be able to put this clear well back into service. The only problem with it is it's about $700,000. Now to replace that clear well with a 1 million gallon storage tank is about $3 million. So our goal will be to put together a project to fix that clear well. It's part of our holding capacity for the city. A belt press, we have a tremendous problem with the mud that comes out of our water. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to take care of. We currently have drying beds. We have storage bins, and we have ponds that we put this water into. They are all forced at almost total capacity. Need turbidity meters just to have a better idea of what the turbidity is in our water. They need to be updated. The water line at out in front of Kiamichi Votech, that's 2,000 feet. It's a 16-inch line. I believe it's about $300,000 to replace that line. That line has had a break in it every year that I've been here. Every year that I've been here because of these expansive soils and the corrosive soils. Adams Sewer Main Project, that's our upcoming CDBG project. Our West Sewer Plant Grit Removal Unit, that's just kind of a place setter because our wastewater plants are being looked at right now by the consultants and we'll go on their recommendations. If their recommendation is a grit removal unit for the West Sewer Plant, that's a $750,000 project. Coal Creek Pump Station, sediment removal, electrical upgrades. You know that we've been rebuilding that substation, that pump station. We had a contractor walk off the job during the sediment removal. We are going to be out there looking for a new contractor to go in there and remove that sediment. And then we'll be doing the electrical upgrades and be bringing that Coal Creek pump station back online. So it's a process that continues on. Hydrology study. I'm not going to talk much about this right now because later on in the evening, we're going to be bringing this forward and talking about the hydrology, the water of our city. This is a project that we took underway, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. It's about 90% complete, and we're going to talk about the hydrology of the system of the entire city of McAlester. Community Services Project, Mullen Park Splash Pad. As you're all aware, we were awarded $325,000 for that splash pad. We're going to match that with private funds that have already been designated or given to the city, along with a lot of in-kind work. and that's about a $600,000 improvement to Mullen Park in the north part of our city. So we're really excited about that. Leadership Park, formerly being Jefferson. I think everybody's up to speed on that. That's that group of people in our community that have raised about $17,000, and we're going to be turning that wading pool into a splash pad at Leadership Park. And then everybody's aware of Arvis Park. Phase 2 is the amenities. Some of those amenities are being worked on right now. That part of that was through an AARP grant. Miscellaneous projects, sidewalks. Let's talk sidewalks. We need sidewalks in our community. Currently, our street department is doing a concrete panel replacement on Wade Watts Boulevard from the top of the hill around 15th Street all the way down to Strong. They've been going down the hill. They're almost to the intersection, or they are at the intersection of Strong and Wade Watts. They're going to turn and start going back up the hill in the, which direction is that? Eastbound on the south side. Fixing all the panels going back up the hill to 15th Street. While they are going up the hill, they're going to be installing a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to those panel replacements in our city right away behind the curb. So we felt that it was a perfect time that while we've got those lanes blocked, we can fix those panels, move over, do that portion of the sidewalk, move up the hill, do those panels, move over, do that portion of the sidewalk. We'll have a sidewalk and all the panels replaced all the way up to 15th Street. We are not going any further than 15th Street. It's kind of like a bridge to nowhere, but it's a start. We have an engineering firm, ISG, engineering the backside of the hill down to the frontage roads, and then we'll be hiring a contractor to do the rest of that sidewalk. We've talked about sidewalks for a couple of years here. I'm excited that next week we're going to start tying those sidewalks in. The other sidewalk that we're looking at later on in the year is Strong Boulevard from Electric to Polk. And that's to move those kids out of the Connolly Addition who are walking along Strong Boulevard to get to the high school and also get to, is it Emerson, the other direction? Emerson. So we have a large amount of people walking on those sides there. Bike lanes, miscellaneous locations, you know, we've put them on Monroe, we've put them on 9th Street. We've got other smaller sections around the city. You're going to see them coming, being installed on A Street. We are also going to be working this spring on putting all the decals on the bike lanes, and also finishing the signage on the side of the roads. So this is a project that's moving forward. Rotary Park, we're looking for partners on this, but that walking trail at Rotary Park needs to be overlaid, and it's something that's in dire need of an overlay. It's in very, very poor condition. So I know I went through this very quickly. I think we've done a good job of identifying a lot of the immediate needs of the city. This is strictly a presentation. We would love to have your feedback, any comments, any ideas, any concerns. Please let us know. There's a tremendous amount of detail in your books. Each project is not only identified, the year it's identified, the costs associated with it, and also a brief description. So if you have any questions, please give us a holler.
Mr. Stacy?
Yes.
Sorry. Is it okay to ask you a couple of quick questions, or is this not the time?
Certainly.
Oh, all right. On the budget, on this 5-year capital outlay program summary, there seems to be a real reduction for the upcoming year, 2021 to 22. I'm sorry, the years 2021 to 2022. Is there any reason that there's almost like $1 million difference in there?
I don't know which to
Oh,
look.
okay, I'm sorry, this.
Yeah, which line
All
items are you looking at?
Oh, my apology. So this right there, this and this. Project type for the year, for the budget.
Well, you can compare them from year to
Fluctuation
year.
there.
You can see that we're doing less projects on our water.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Some of these are just carryover projects. It's
Okay.
it's what we identify as funding available or the amount of money that might be available.
Mhm.
Okay. So these numbers are going to move
Okay.
constantly.
Okay. And the other question is, I am not really acquainted with when you talk about overlay and base. Could you put it in everyday language so that we can all understand?
You bet.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. When you overlay a street,
Okay.
really all you're doing is taking a machine that lays down asphalt and going over the existing asphalt.
Okay.
That's called an asphalt overlay.
All right.
When we have to do a base reconstruction, what we have to do is we have to grind up the asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
The way we know this is because the asphalt's no good. It's cracked, it's falling apart, it's breaking up. We know at that point that there's a base problem. You
Okay.
can't overlay that just
right.
because if you do it won't last. So when we talk about the base is approximately 12 inches of ground below the asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what we encounter there is a lot of our roads were built on clay.
Okay.
Well, clay is really, really good until it gets wet, and then it gets spongy. And when you see tire tracks in the road and you see the sides pushed out, it's because that it's probably clay underneath or very weak soil that is the weight has pushed it out to the side. So what you have to do is you have to dig all that clay out, compact it, what's called an AB rock, and compact it down, make it very hard, and then you lay asphalt on top of that with the idea that you won't have to come back other than an overlay in 10 years.
Oh, okay. And what type of material? Are we using quality material or we're just going with whatever we can afford to purchase? Or is it okay to even ask that?
No, we purchase all of our rock and materials. They are very high grade material.
Okay.
They have certain specifications for road construction, and all of that comes out of DeLisi's rock quarry over in the Hartshorn area.
Okay.
So we actually go over there. That is a clean material. It's been processed. It's sized to what our needs are. Okay, and that's what we purchase, and that's what we build our bases with.
Oh, okay.
It's best for compaction and those type of things.
All right. And usually this last 10 years on the average time frame, the overlay and the base work, is this what you're saying? Generally?
Yes.
Oh, about
Yes.
10 years.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Pritchard.
Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
This?
Yes.
Okay.
The pages aren't numbered, but it's toward the front. Stormwater construction for this year, we're looking at $693,000. It says new. Is that really all new construction?
I don't have the list in front of me, but if you look at what we're presenting tonight, how much is the project for the canal that's on the way tonight? How much? Isn't it 4 or something? Okay, so that's 390. I know that the pipe that's coming apart on Sonia Way, the drainage pipe, that's estimated at another $200,000. So yeah, there's probably at least $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 worth of new construction.
Well, I mean, I would consider that. I mean, like the Sonia Way pipe. Would you not consider that a repair?
Well, you're replacing the entire pipe.
Yeah, well, I guess when I read this, and the reason I'm asking you about it is when I read new, I anticipated this to be we're going to put in stormwater infrastructure where stormwater infrastructure does not currently exist. Is that what that means?
No. Okay. It also means replacement of existing structure to new.
You talked about sidewalks. I'm on the next page now. like the sidewalk that you may have said this, I may have missed it, but the sidewalk on Wade Watts.
Yeah.
And then the sidewalk on Strong.
Yes.
How much do you think those are going to cost?
We estimate from Strong all the way over the hill to the frontage road on Wade Watts is right at $100,000 for materials.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, forming materials and cement. And that includes labor also. So that number is going to be a little bit less because we're doing half that project in-house as we move up the hill. So it's going to be a little less. Contractor would do it for about $100,000. The other side is a little bit further on Strong from Electric to Polk. I would imagine that's going to be somewhere in the 100 to 150,000.
So this project here on South Main, it seems expensive.
What?
It seems expensive.
Okay, which page are you on now?
I'm on, they're not numbered.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's toward the front. It's under Public Works and Streets. It's the sidewalk replacement from Choctaw to South Main Street at Choctaw Avenue. I think it's right there at Main Street in Choctaw where the
Okay, I got storage, Mike D.
Red Barn. It's where Red Barn is, please.
Yeah, what was the void of these fixes?
I got too many people talking. Help me out here. Which one is it?
Where are we?
this one. It's the,
Oh, yeah, right there by the railroad tracks.
yeah. Why is that so expensive? Or why is that one $250,000 when we can put a sidewalk?
I was
further?
a little concerned about that myself because about 8 years ago, when this project came to be, it was about $100,000, $125,000. What's underneath there is it's an old tunnel, and you actually have a complete void underneath that sidewalk, the width of that sidewalk, that opens up into the basement of the building next door. So what you have is you have some braces across the top, and then you had braces that held that sidewalk, but that wall is completely open. So in order to go in there and do this project correctly, you've got to build an entire wall in the basement of this building. You got to fill the whole thing in, compact it, and put a sidewalk on it. And here's the other problem. We have an ordinance that says that the adjacent landowner is responsible for the sidewalks next to their facility. Okay, so we've had it on here, but realistically, is the city really responsible for that project?
Well, I feel like you're not going to find a better or stronger advocate for spending money in our historic commercial districts. But if we're thinking about building sidewalks, this does not seem like a great use of sidewalk money to me. I mean, the distances we talked about with these other projects are significantly bigger. And I think we've got the potential to spend this money on a different project that is going to impact more people on a daily basis. My take on it.
Well, okay, let's summarize it. We're going to Wade Watts, then we're going to Strong, and it's going to be a year or two, and before we ever go down there to our historical district on South Main, we'll come back and have that discussion with the council.
You have it on there for this year.
Yeah, it's probably going to be put out.
Okay. I want to talk about the roll-off truck at the recycling center.
Yes.
That seems awfully expensive to me too.
Ooh, doesn't it?
I just looked for things that seemed
I know.
expensive to me.
Yeah.
That does seem really expensive.
Was it 160 or 180?
180, yeah.
180, yeah.
What are we doing currently?
We have a roll-off truck that's 20 years old. To put it into perspective, it was down for 3.5 weeks here recently. We use that roll-off truck not only to take care of our recycling materials, but also the roll-off bins that take care of the sludge material out at the water plant. That roll-off truck loads those bins and takes them to our landfill for cover. During that 3.5 week period of time, our recycling center was completely inundated with material because we couldn't move it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had to put a lot of our sludge into the ponds, which means we've lost ground on cleaning those ponds. So this machine is extremely important to our city. If we're going to continue with a recycling program and continue with our sludge bins, along with a belt press out at our water plant, we have to have a new roll-off truck.
What would we do if we didn't have? What's the option at the water plant with?
Well, we're gonna be putting in a belt press, but this roll-off truck would kind of be the backup to those sludge bins.
Mm-hmm.
The belt press will take care of a lot of it. Our problem is the recycling center, okay, and hauling those bins to the recyclers.
Do we get paid for the recycling? Why are you smiling?
I'll tell you, recycling is the biggest losing moneymaker that anybody can get into. There is no money in recycling anymore, and if you do get a few dollars for it, you ought to be really thankful for it.
I don't know what the answer is, but I wish there was an answer that didn't involve us spending $180,000. I'm sure you do too.
I do.
I hope you do, but I wish there was.
It's a nice truck.
Yeah, it better be. My last comment, and this is a general one, is, this whole year, this upcoming year, I think we're spending $971,000 on water projects, but only, from what I was able to find, I think the only money in that $971,000 that is actually going to go to water line replacement is the Kaimishi Drive water line. And, I think we've seen over the last 6 months or so with the numerous water breaks that we've had that have led to citywide issues, that we have a serious issue with our water lines. And I don't know what the answer is, but, replacing the water line on Kaimishi Drive is too small. And this council needs to get serious about coming up with a way to fund significantly more money into water line replacements than what we're currently doing.
That's a great intro into number, what is it on the agenda?
It's the last agenda item.
Last agenda item. That's a wonderful intro, because I absolutely agree with you. And we're gonna be able to show you some back of the napkin numbers tonight that shows that we have to do something different here.
Pete, there was one slated for 21-22, $170,000 for a public works complex improvements.
Yes.
Tell me what that accounts for.
Our current public works complex, we're able to use the garage in the center. That facility has offices that are built off to the sides. Those offices were abandoned probably in our 4th or 5th year because of leaking and mold. And what we did is we moved our employees into trailers, work trailers that are working out very well. But that main garage area needs roof improvements, and it would be our goal to put those offices back in, because it costs us about $700 a month to rent those trailers.
Okay.
So that's what the idea is, to rebuild those offices on both the front and the back side of that building,
Okay.
along with roof and units.
And the cost about the rent leads into my next comments on this, and also on equipment. Can we actually start seeing the mileage usage? There was like several that had high mileage and high maintenance cost, but there was no data to substantiate that to get
Certainly.
kind of a return on investment.
Absolutely.
I would like to see that included in these as well.
We can do that. And if you ever have any questions like that, we have mileage on every one of our vehicles at the end of every month. Okay. And that's through our gas program with our distributor. So we have all of that information. It's just, what would you guys like to see?
Okay.
Just let us know.
And then the other one is, we have justification, but I think it would be beneficial if we had an impact statement. What's the impact if we don't do this work?
Kind of like what we just discussed
Yes.
with the roll-off truck.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think that would be very beneficial as I was going through this.
Absolutely.
And then maybe a simple project number.
And a page number?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Anyone else?
I've got one
I'm saving
other,
all my comments for the last.
just one other last. What is a turbidity meter? What?
It measures turbidity in the water. Turbidity is the cloudiness in the water.
Okay.
As you are aware, about a week and a half ago, we had a water line break in the
Right.
city. One of the things that we were monitoring during that whole process of bringing the water system back was the turbidity. Now, turbidity has to be 0.3 or less per million gallons. Okay.
Parts per million.
Parts per million. Yeah,
Okay.
parts per million. Thank you.
All right.
So it was crucial at that time that we were monitoring that because that's what our permit allows. Now, we were working with the state at that time, and in order to get water back to the city, we were actually putting water into the city that was 0.3 to 1.0, which there aren't any concerns. It's the cloudiness. At 5 parts per million, you couldn't see it.
Okay.
Okay, it's a meter that just measures that cloudiness.
And now we don't need to replace or purchase any of that, right? It's functional. It's working. Right?
It works,
Okay.
but we need a new system. It's outdated. I mean, it's slow. It has its problems.
Okay. And that's in the millions.
It's kind of like your car. At some point, you have to replace it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda item number 2. Consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign a change order number 2 from Built Right Construction LLC for a reduction in contract value of $3,420 for the Washington Avenue improvements. Mr. Burke.
Full council. Thank you. What you have in front of you is for the 5th and Washington project of the roundabout. What we found out once we pulled the top of the existing road, the geotech report said we had a groundwater issue. It's sitting on solid rock. We don't have a groundwater issue. So the main bulk of this change order takes that out of the project, and we put base back in. It also has we replaced the drain line. When we got the top of it off, the drain line was clay tile and it was cracked. So instead of putting a brand new street on a bad line, we replaced we want to replace the line in the intersection.
So the rock that was a curse at one time became a blessing at another time.
Yes.
Anybody got any questions or comments? Take a motion.
Oh, I've got one question.
Go ahead.
We increased this contract by 68,000 or something like that at one point.
43 was change order.
I'm
Yes,
terrible.
sir.
Thank you.
No, you're fine.
I'm just making it bigger. So that was to jackhammer out rock, correct?
That was to replace the water line.
Okay.
That was laying on top of the rock.
Okay.
Directly underneath the road. But the reason it was expensive was because they had to go down solid rock.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Take a motion and second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 3. Consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign the contractor's final pay number 4 and certificate of substantial completion for the contract with Collins Waterworks LLC for the Section A raw water main and transmission line improvements, and accept the project is completed. Once again.
This is our 30-inch water line that we replaced on McAlester Lake Dam. This is the main water source to the water treatment plant at McAlester. This was a large project. We had the final inspection out there February the 24th. Contractor got all of his punch list items done. He is now complete. Our recommendation is to accept the project as complete and pay him his final pay estimate.
Any questions or comments? Take a motion and second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 4. Consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign the contractor's final pay number 2 and certificate of substantial completion for the contract with Sunrise Construction LLC for the canal wall mitigation, Sandy Creek, and accept the project is completed.
This project is another one of our projects where we try to reinforce the canal walls. If the council remembers, our canal walls have in the past fallen in, and when we do that, it's very expensive to replace. So we're keeping an eye on the walls themselves, and if we can identify a wall that is moving, we go in there and we try to brace it up. This is one of those projects, and the project is now complete. So this is just a final payout.
On that bracing, have we gone back and looked at the ones that we've done, a year or two ago to see?
I don't think we have, but we probably could. We'll go take a look at them and see how they're holding up. But
That would be nice. That'd be good to know.
sure.
If I could add something, we now have a drone here at the city with high resolution cameras, so it'll be good to put that drone down into those canals and so we don't have to walk them anymore and get people down in there. So that's going to be a real advantage going forward.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith. I'll second it. Any further discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 5. Consider an act upon accepting the bid amount of $390,880 from WWJB Contracting and authorizing the mayor to sign a notice of award for 102 Saunier Way Canal Bank Stabilization Project.
This is a stormwater project. It's right there behind walls going south. This is a earthen canal right now. It's eroding. If you go look at it, you'll see trees are grown over on it. We got a couple of aerial pipes that keeps stopping the ditch up. This basically puts the canal as a concrete canal. Our recommendation, the contractor, the WWJV, is a local contractor. He does oil field work, but he does do a lot of dirt work along with it, and that's what this mainly is. I think his subcontractor is going to be Drake, who is going to be doing the concrete. So, positive on this is that we'll be staying here in McAlester.
This is a project that involves the Corps of Engineers as well. Is that correct?
Not that I
No,
know
this
of.
isn't
No,
the
this
one.
is a Robert Vaughn project, so I'm trying to say that he's a little sick. The handout that I gave, the white is where the erosion is occurring right now, and the red is where the canal wall and actually the city easement is. We're very narrow there on city easements. That right there would be east. It's actually west. This is walls right here, and this is south. Yes, sir.
There's actually been some damage done to private property from the
Yeah,
erosion, hasn't there?
yeah, you can see it's on private property there.
Councilman Pritchard?
On the bid page, or I don't know if that's the correct term, but there are these alternative bid items.
Yes, thank you.
What are those?
What we did is we bid the project with a 6-inch thick concrete floor, but we put an alternate bid in there to put a 4-inch floor in there, and we wanted to compare the prices. Once we got the project in, we determined that we would recommend to go ahead with the 4-inch floor versus the 6-inch. We also bid out putting shrubs along the side of the canal, and the bid also recommendation also includes those.
Councilman Brown, do you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I was just gonna ask, of course, I'm pretty familiar with this. We've had problems with this for a long time back there. And once you go in and get all this done, of course, I'm gonna ask you about the warranty. It's probably in here and I overlooked it.
It's 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yes, he'll if he plants the shrubs, if the council recommends to or awards him the shrubs, he'll make sure that shrubs are stay alive for 2 years. He'll be responsible for it and the concrete work. It's got a 2-year warranty also.
All right. Then it becomes our baby, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, man.
What we're going to go through and remove all the vegetation, put a new concrete storm drainage in, and we're going to put vegetation back. Why?
Because it's just unsightly in there.
Well, most of those homes are going to have privacy fences. And then the other one is Renegers and the storage facility. Do they care if there's shrubbery?
I believe there's a few of the property owners on the east side that actually have chain link fences right here.
Okay.
Any other questions, Councilman Harrison?
I've got a question. What fund will this be paid from?
This is the stormwater
Oh,
fund.
the stormwater. Oh, okay. And it's a tremendous amount of money. And tell us about the business again that is going to be doing the work. You said the name of this company is
The name of the company is
Tell us about that.
WWJB. Robert, this is Robert Vaughn's project, but he checked the references out on these guys, and they have very good references. Most of their work that they do right now is the dirt work in the oil field. Okay. But they had all the bonding, all the insurance, and all the requirements, and the experience to do this type of work. That's the reason we are recommending them, and they are the low bidder.
Have they done any work in Oklahoma at all?
In Oklahoma, yes.
They have.
For the city of McAlester, not for us. I don't know if they've done any other work.
So have they done work for another city in Oklahoma that you know of, or is it just strictly oil field?
I have to apologize. I don't know who the references are that Robert Vaughn checked, but we can get you that information.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
You bet.
Councilman Cox?
How are they going to handle water diversion while they're doing this?
They'll have to divert it to one side and build half the canal at a time. Okay. They are very aware this is the spring, and it will be an issue.
There's some serious water runs through there too.
Yes, yes, there is. Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens.
So, Councilman Cox brought this up. So, is the vegetation that they're putting back in there, is that for water mitigation, or is that for?
It's mainly for erosion control.
Okay.
Okay. And just the unsightliness of the canal.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Take a motion in a second. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
No.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 6. Consider an act upon accepting the bid amount of $149,600 from Built Right Construction LLC and authorize the mayor to sign a notice of award for the UPS lift station improvements project.
This is a sewer lift station that's out by the UPS, out by the airport. To be quite honest with you, it's one of the worst ones that I have seen. It really needs it needs this project. We had 7 contractors that checked out bids, plans. We had 6 that elected to bid on the project. The low bidder was Built Right. His base bid was $114,600. His alternate bid, which was for a standby generator, was for $35,000. both those bids were under budget. We've worked with Bill Wright before. They worked with the city before. Our recommendation is awarding them the project.
Any questions, comments? Councilman Harrison?
It seems to me that this company is one that just keeps coming back over and over. Is it because they continue to be the low bidder, or
That's
No.
correct.
okay,
That's correct.
is that it? And this is coming out of the general fund budget.
It would be infrastructure, probably.
This is the infrastructure fund.
The infrastructure fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we financially, because we just spent, we're taking a bid for quite a bit a few minutes ago. Are we financially in a situation where we can do these bids without it being any real problem?
Councilwoman, that's a good question. The stormwater fund that was just used on the canal project
Yes.
was almost $400,000.
Right.
That fund currently generates about $850,000 a year, so we're fine there.
Okay.
The $149,000 for the infrastructure fund in this project, that fund generates about $2.1 million a year.
Okay.
And it's spread among water, sewer, streets, all those things. So, yeah, there's significant, there's substantial money available for this project in the infrastructure fund.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Take a motion in a second. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any further discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Ms. Burke. We are on to agenda item number 7, consideration of an ordinance amending Code of Ordinances of the City of McAlester by creating property maintenance standards. This is our second reading. So, Ms. Clifton?
Yes, good evening, council. Like the mayor said, this is our second reading, and it's just an opportunity for citizens and the council to discuss this again. I would reiterate, though, from our last meeting, the noted changes for the emergency enforcement and procedures, that we will make that change, that it will include oral and written direction in there. Currently, it just says oral, but we'll put the written in there. And also to answer Councilwoman Harrison's question about person versus occupant and those definitions. The person is just to define, especially like if you have an LLC or an incorporation that owns the property, it just defines them as being a person.
Okay.
So they are defined in here and included in where it uses the word person, it includes them as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I have one question, and it's probably in there, but I couldn't find it. Whenever someone is in violation of this ordinance, what is the penalty?
It's the one outlined in section 1.8, which is a fine up to $500 plus the court cost. So it could be up to $584.
Yeah,
And-
which then that could be per day, right?
Yes, each day is a separate offense.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, well, this is a non-action item, so we will move
Okay.
on to the next one. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, thank you.
We're on to agenda item number 8, consider and act upon an ordinance of the City of McAlester creating a disorderly house nuisance ordinance in the process in which to abate such nuisances. Do you want to take it, Ms. Clifton, or do you want us? Do you want me to, or which? You want me to? All right. This came about because we have ordinances that charge people to keep their property up, but we don't have anything that allows people to run essentially criminal organizations out of their property. And what this does is creates a method to address that. It has an appeal process at every step going through it. The first violation is the property owner and the tenant, who aren't necessarily always the same, are notified that this is going on. The second time it happens, they have to come to a conference with the chief of police and our community development director, and come with a plan as to how they're going to keep this from happening again. And the third time it happens, then they have to put up a significant deposit to correct it. And there's a time period which is in the ordinance for review. And if it continues to happen after that, it goes to the same $500 a day possible fine in district court. Anybody have any questions? Councilwoman Harrison?
If you don't mind, I don't know if this be out of order or not, but could we get input from Chief Wanzik, if he doesn't mind, since this is dealing with, if it's disorderly, wouldn't the law enforcement be called in
Actually,
or not?
it's a civil. It's a civil. It's not a criminal.
Oh, okay. Well, is it okay if he?
Yes, sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, we want to hear. Thank you.
I think she wants your opinion.
Oh, well, I would like your opinion if you don't mind.
You know, I was concerned about this ordinance when it was first brought up because I didn't want the ordinance to be too broad. I thought it needed to be specific. I wanted the ordinance to have numerous appeals processes. I thought that the ordinance, at one time we talked about a 90-day. Another time I think we talked about a year. If you go too long, that's probably inappropriate. 120 days is not too long. You have to have a good due process provision. You know, they can appeal it to the council. So that's kind of a safeguard. That is absolutely a safeguard for anybody who may be in violation of this. I don't know if you have any specific questions about it or not.
I was just concerned, you know, if the law enforcement would be involved in this at any time, but you said it is civil. But
Law enforcement would be involved in that. We would be involved in the initial crimes, most likely. If it be a drug crime, if it be a stolen property crime, or to some degree, if it be a theft of utility crime. Again, we made it to where it wasn't too broad, narrow and specific to those three categories. I would say that, you know, if we go criminal, we could go criminal through the district court. It is a misdemeanor fine, but it gives a fine to whoever's in violation of that, and it does not give you the other actions of abatement. It's easier for us probably to prove the district court. I mean, the statute is one sentence long as compared to the 6 pages, but what you're probably going to end up with is a fine. You're probably not going to end up with somebody in jail, and you might not change the behavior that's going on there. My hope would be that this wasn't used very often, that upon first notice or second notice that the problem is corrected. And I do not believe that it would be used very often. Jamie Clifton got some information from Midwest City, which indicated that they used it once successfully over several years. So it's not something that is likely to be used multiple times. The other thing I wanted to make sure when we had meetings about this is that we wouldn't get involved in a neighborhood feud and people try to use this. And I think that the attorneys narrowed it down and put enough safeguards in there. And using those 3 categories is the only time we can use this ordinance. I think that takes away that problem.
And the three categories are drugs, theft, and theft of utilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
Councilman Smith?
Yes, sir.
So you support this in its present form, Chief?
I do.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Councilman Brown?
do we get a lot of theft of utilities? I don't. Or is that just
Copper wire.
oh
Yeah.
really?
People steal water all the time.
Go hook on somebody else's meter?
No, we go and remove the meter, and they put in what are called straight pipes. And we don't have any way of knowing that a straight pipe's in the ground until we go out and read the meter.
Oh, I guess you got to think like a criminal. They do that. I mean,
And it happens more than you would imagine.
yeah, I never even thought. Okay. Gee.
Council Pritchard?
I like this ordinance. I've got a couple things I like the concept. couple things I don't like about it. Section 82, 194A limits this to residents of McAlester. I think that's too narrow. I mean, it should be property owners. If you have a business, you don't actually reside in McAlester, you have a disorderly house that is affecting your business, I think you should be able to file the complaint. Which I think is a small point. And I mean, I know of a situation of a house that would have qualified for this, that was close to a business district and affected business owners. Additionally, I don't really like this appeals process where the city council acts in this quasi judicial process. I'm fine with us being the final appeal, but this whole section about us making or am I reading this right?
Injunction.
Yeah, we have to render in writing within 60 days an opinion. I don't really know who would write that, how we would do that. I don't believe we have anything like that currently. Maybe we do, and I'm unaware of it. But if we're going to be the appeals process, I would much rather take, a yes or no vote in public than have to do this writing of an opinion that's due in 60 days. Those are my input.
Would you be good with both?
What do you mean by both?
There would be a council meeting, but we would have to give the written opinion of what the opinion at the council meeting.
I just think doing the written opinion is going to be. I mean, I would rather. I just don't know how logistically that's going to work out. I mean, it's almost like we're issuing like an appellate court opinion, and they go through multiple conferences over weeks and months to come to that decision, and then decide who's going to join and who's going to not. And that's just so different than the way this body typically operates. And I don't even know, I haven't considered this, but I don't know that we could even do, an executive session to cover this. So it seems to me to be unwieldy. And I'd rather have somebody come here and make their case, similar to how we do with like the condemnations or something like that. And then us all just take a vote and say yes or no. The way we decide every other thing and then move forward in that direction.
Wouldn't the minutes be in a written opinion?
Well, I mean, if that's what this means, then I'm fine with that.
With that,
Yeah, I think you can just take out the written, be rendered within 60 days. I think the appeal process is correct, but it may not apply where you've, I guess it would apply if you had a fine by the city or if this was resolved in city court. But I think if it's going to be resolved in district court, your appeal is not going to be from the action of the directors. It's going to be, if the action is appeal from the directors, then I think this is correct. I mean, that would be the proper appeal process to the council. And we can make it, as you do in all other cases, just take a vote, yes or no, to uphold the director's decision. And I think that would apply to practically all those instances of violation, except for those that are resolved in the district court. And that's going to be to the Supreme Court.
If someone comes to the council and the council chooses to uphold it or deny it, would the minutes would they work as the written opinion?
I think that yes, I think that would be the minutes of the meeting to uphold the director's decision or not.
Yeah. So.
So are you wanting to modify that to?
Well, if the minutes count as a written opinion, I don't think there's any need to modify it, is there?
No.
Now back on the 194A, was it? Yeah, if we just put in by a resident or business owner, is that sufficient?
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry.
Well, the term is disorderly house nuisance.
Yeah, but it's a sworn notarized statement of complaint made by, we currently have it by a resident of McAlester. If we put by a resident or business owner located in McAlester.
Yeah, but do you want to change that to disorderly nuisance? Take out the word house or,
No, we're on this one here. This one here.
You're talking
yeah,
about
but
here at the front,
I'm talking about the heading here,
the heading.
disorderly house nuisance.
No, it's still going to be a house, but a business owner would be able to make a complaint. If you had,
Okay.
let's say you had a
So you
bakery in
just-
your home and your neighbor's selling crack,
There's lots of places. I mean,
Yeah.
we're commercial districts, but
yeah,
yeah.
well, you are right across the
Well,
street's
second,
residence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So it would just be,
Okay.
so just amend it
Taking
to,
out the word dwelling.
no, we're just adding it here. Or
More
business
business.
owner.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On this, I really think if this sentence just says a sworn notarized statement of complaint concerning any of the three acts, like I think if we strike everything after complaint, and so if we strike made by a resident of McAlester, then that opens it up to being made by
Anyone?
anyone. Yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't change.
Are you
doesn't
saying
change
strike
any
out the
meaning.
word McAlester?
No, I'm saying strike out of 82 194A, strike made by a resident of McAlester.
Well, the chief wants it limited to somebody who's within, I mean, this says 300 feet, but he wants it limited to somebody who's in a position to observe, I assume.
Somebody who's in a
Oh.
position to be disturbed.
Yeah, you're right, because it says, yeah, that won't work.
300 feet.
Yeah. So if we just do resident or business owners.
Leave it.
how Jamie's gonna clear it.
I just want to make a small suggestion. You could put complaint made by a resident or entity living or operating in McAlester. And the complaint made by a resident or entity living or operating in McAlester.
Yeah.
So
and
that
then-
way it would cover any business operating in McAlester, but then also the residents who live here.
Yeah, we've got to do something though about the end of the sentence too, where it says within 300 feet of the resident's property. So it has to be within 300 feet of the
The entity
The
making
entity.
the complaint.
yeah, something like that.
Complaining,
The operating entity.
complainant's property.
The
Yeah.
complainant's
Yeah,
property.
the complainant. Just put complainant.
Oh, complainant.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I'll make a motion to approve with the amended language. Second, Councilman Smith. Any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you
Mr.
both.
Clifton.
Thanks, Chief.
We're on to agenda item number 9, discussion of City of McAllister's water infrastructure and possible implementation of water line replacement program. Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Stevens. Councilman Stevens requested to have this on the agenda. I'd like to have him give us some comments, and then what we would like to do is spend a little time addressing what's been accomplished in McAlester, what we're currently working on, and where we're heading with the water, sewer, and street systems within the city. I think the council will be pleased to hear the amount of work that's being currently done and what we will be bringing forward to everyone in the very near future.
I think it kind of goes without saying that we've got some issues. We've experienced quite a bit. I think we've probably done, I don't know, I'm trying to remember here, but so far as boil orders, I bet we've done mandatory or not mandatory, but precautionary things like that. Half a dozen in the last couple of years, at least. I mean, I can think of 2 or 3 in the last year. I mean, that's an issue. And kind of getting to kind of go back to where I'm coming from with this. Every time we have a water break, we have an issue here. You know, that's to go without saying that we've got lots of problems. We have a large debt load. We have a declining budget right now. We've got issues that we're trying to catch up on that haven't been touched in a long time, as we've been addressed with our CIP plan. But I think the thing that fails and lacks here is that we have great city employees that go out and they work throughout the night, around the clock, all weekend long, and then finally get it fixed and figured out, and then they go home. But we're not doing anything to actually help them prevent it. And I think as a council, that's on us. I don't think that's on city staff. I don't think that's on leadership. I don't think Pete should have to come in here and hand us a plan to go, okay, here's how you should fix the water system. I think this is something that we should be taking much more seriously than we are. And the CIP that I see, I don't see anything that tackles our water lines. I don't see anything that actually gets us ahead of this other than we're going to continue to make improvements to a water plant that we've heard multiple times is doing much better than it has in the past. But there's going to come a time when the water lines are going to break. Again, probably right now, there's probably something that's leaking across the city somewhere.
There's 11.
Yeah.
Right now.
So, but here's my biggest fear is that it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And we're going to constantly be trying to give them a spoon and tell them to dip out all the water out of the river. And they don't have any chance to stop it. And when it does go dry, because our city's going to go dry, at some point, the system's going to break and it's going to go dry. I don't know when we'll get water back on. But that's really concerning to me because there's people here that can't go to the store and go get water.
Right.
There's children here that don't have any other options. Or we're going to have a contaminant get in our water like did this last time with 1 sample, but it's going to be 6 samples. And then people are going to get sick. And that's a problem. We can live with poor streets. We can live with less firemen, less policemen. I don't want to do any of those things. But we can't live without water. And for time and time again, as this has happened, city staff does a wonderful job to fix it, but we're not doing anything to get ahead of it. So tonight, I want to open up the discussion for us as a council to start thinking about how do we value our water lines? How do we value the sewer lines? How are we going to address them? How are we going to fix them? More than just, hey, we had another water break. This is a bad deal. That's just not good enough. We need to do better. So what I would like to see us do, and I propose, is for us to actually make a plan. It doesn't have to be tonight, but we need to start doing it every council meeting. Because what's going to happen is we're going to go dry. The water lines are going to break and something's going to happen. And then we're in a really bad position because we're not tackling it ahead of time. And that's shame on us. That's not the city staff's responsibility. That's shame on us. We're the ones that are supposed to be setting this plan and helping give direction. We're not doing that. We're definitely not doing it here. So I know that Mr. Stasiak has been discussing some things with a company called Verdunity that they've actually talked to several times over the last year.
A year.
About doing some things like that and valuing our water lines. Because what I see for us is that we repair breaks. There's a break on McAlester right now. I've driven by it. We've repaired it. We've repaired stuff in the middle of nowhere and swamps and forest and everywhere else in town. But I don't think we're valuing our water lines. Where's the most water coming through? And maybe that's some things that Mr. Stasiak's going to show us here in just a minute. But we're not doing anything to actually value the lines and figure out how much it's going to actually cost. I don't want to spend money on a useless study. I know the discussion of the numbers that we've had with valuing some of our streets, water, and sewer. We don't know an actual number. We pull something out of the air every time. I mean, I know that Mr. Stasiak and I have talked about how much water we actually think that gets treated and actually used instead of going in breaks. How much did you think that was last time we spoke, Pete?
We have about 38% water loss.
Yeah. So that's 38% water loss that we're paying for, that there's a break for. You know, water shouldn't be something that we perpetually lose on or we have to bank on to just work. This is something we need to take much more seriously. And if we don't, it's going to be shame on us because there's going to be a bigger problem. We've got to get a little bit better ahead of it. Not be reactionary, but actually plank a plan and then go with it. So what I'd like to propose tonight is we have this discussion, and then we also direct Mr. Stasiak to call for Verdunity, have them come down and present something where they can value our water lines, our sewer lines, our streets, and have him start that discussion again and have them come here and give us a presentation and go that direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to the rest of the council.
I have a question for city manager. Don't we have that study going on right now?
We have a hydrology study that's about 90% complete at this time. So we've been working on the system identifying those needs, identifying those concerns, to identifying those areas that we know are problem areas. We're also currently valuing what those needs are. So this is all very timely. It's a little bit, it's probably 30 to 60 days ahead of where we are in this process, but we're currently going through that. We hired ISG probably 4 months ago to work on the hydrology of the city, just to understand where the problems are, where the major problems are, and also the pressures that we're incurring in those parts of the city. So what I would like to do is, this is a great introduction. What I would like to do is talk a little bit for a few minutes about what the city has done, because the perception is we're not getting anything accomplished out there. And I think where that stems from is we do a little bit every year, but nobody ever sees the sum of the game. And as we look back on it here the last couple of weeks, there's about $7.2 million worth of water projects that have been completed in this city since 2013. Okay, that's a tremendous amount of money. Prior to these conversations, everybody pointed the finger at the water plant. Well, it's not the water plant. It's our water lines that are the problem. And in the last three, you're right, in the last year, we've had 3 boil advisories. Those are all due to water line breaks and in remote areas. So we know that probably the thing that keeps us up most at night are those main feeder lines coming into the city, because that plant's about 5 miles out of town, and we have 2 main feeders coming in, a 30-inch line, which I understand is in pretty good shape. The 24-inch line is questionable. So there's been a lot done here. Okay, and I give the city a lot of credit for getting that accomplished. I give this council a lot of credit for getting these accomplished. What I'd like to do is talk a few minutes about what we've identified, which are 30 very, very fragile areas of our community, and also where we're heading in the future. And if we need to bring in consultants or whatever we need to do, I think we've made great progress, great strides going forward in what the needs are, to identify those needs for the council. I can tell you that sitting here, that if you look at, and you've heard these numbers before, we have some cleaner numbers. We've always told you there's 171 miles of water lines underneath this city. We've refined that number from everything from a 2-inch line to a 30-inch line. There's actually 191 miles of water lines underneath this city. If you take the average size of that line to be an 8-inch line, just the replacement cost of an 8-inch line underneath this city to be installed, which isn't the apertures and everything, is $55 million in today's dollars. Okay, if you look at a replacement program over 30 years to do this in, and you put a 3% average inflation number to that number to replace the water lines in the city is $87.5 million. Now, here's the other concern that you get into. You can talk about water, but when you're in those trenches, there's no reason to not replace that sewer line, which is 3 feet away from that water line. Okay, you don't want to go in there, replace the water line, and a couple of years later come back and replace that sewer line and dig it back up. You know, we have 143 miles of sewer lines in this city at a cost today of $41 million. Over a 30-year program is $65 million. These are numbers that are, I can sit here and tell you that if we tripled everybody's water and sewer rates today, we could get a program moving forward that would take that we could get this accomplished in 30 years. Okay. We have the most vulnerable areas of the city identified, and that's not only through hydrology, but it's also through boots on the ground and the people that work for this city and the people that's worked for the city in the past who have been back to these locations multiple times and know the condition of the pipe. You know, we can talk about Strong Boulevard. And the complaints that we had on Strong Boulevard, that water line being opened up for almost a month down there, and people being inconvenienced because of one lane traffic. But we need to show you what that water line looks like, and those corrosive uh, uh, materials that are in the ground there, and how that water line is deteriorated underneath the belly of it. That entire street needs to be replaced. Not the street, but the entire water line needs to be replaced really soon. I mean, so with that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke's going to kind of show you what we've done in meeting with our employees, looking at the water of the city, pulling all of the work orders over the last couple of years to also identify these areas, and then kind of where we need to go for the future.
Well, they're setting up. What's a ballpark figure we get with the CDBG grant?
Usually about $100,000, and then it requires a 50% match. So we do anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 a year at CDBG, and that's water line and sewer line replacement in low to moderate income areas.
So the grant would be about 200,000, and would be contributing about 100,000.
No. The grant would be about 100, and we'd contribute 100. I'm sorry, it's dollar for dollar match. And we've done very well with that over the last 11 years. We've been able to take advantage of that 10 of the 11 years.
How many of those areas do we have left? Do you know?
How many what?
Areas do we have left?
Of LMI?
Hopefully we're going to run out of it.
I would hope so.
You know, I mean, seriously though, do you
well,
know how much area like we could still qualifies for those CD?
I do not at this time,
Yeah.
but I can definitely get together with Millie Vance, who does all that LMI work for us, and she would be able to give us a ballpark figure.
It'd be, because it's essentially Third Ward and Fifth Ward are about the only two places that that qualify, and doing 300,000 a year probably doesn't make a big dent.
Here's something interesting, since you bring that up, Councilman, is, we do maybe a 6-block area right here in Third Ward, and then we skip 3 or 4 blocks and we do another CDBG over here, and then we skip maybe 5 blocks and do another one over here. What would be great is if we could go in there and tie those projects together, because they don't qualify in between. But if the city went in there and tied them together, and then eventually you got all new water lines.
We did some of that last year, didn't we?
We did in the Connolly Edition. Yeah. And we haven't been back to the Connolly Edition.
You should go.
And that was a weekly process.
You should go back to the skate park.
Well, council, sorry, I don't know where to put the map.
If you turn-
Is that okay with
Can
everybody?
you turn it sideways, and then maybe the camera would still pick up instead of looking at
Sure.
that ain't gonna help.
Maybe.
Did you bring both of them?
I got both of them, but I only got one easel.
Okay.
Can you still see, James? Okay. Council, this is the first map. We wanted to show what has been done. Okay. This isn't 100%, but this is the major jobs that actually were done. To orient you, this is north. Okay. Here's the water plant out here. And of course the airport is down here. Okay. This is South Main, and as you can see, what the map looks like. Okay, not a whole lot of work. It's what it looks like, But when you look at it, like this is Second Street. Okay, that's all the way from South Street all the way up to Comanche. So that's it's longer, it's larger than it looks. Okay. Second map, and I'm just gonna put this right over there.
What's the time frame we're looking at?
This is from 2013. Okay. Some of the major jobs we did was up here, the transmission line that went from the water treatment plant that actually got water down to the town. We went around the lake. We had a break in the middle of the lake, and we just got done with that 20-inch line across Talawanda Dam. As Mr. Stasiak said, we were employed about 3 to 4 months ago to prepare an engineering report and a hydraulic model of the city itself. One of the things that we wanted to do was talk to the city employees and find out exactly what's going on out there. Okay, we met with the staff, and everything in blue is what keeps them up at night. And as you can see, it's a lot. Okay, what you're seeing there is around $14.3 million. Okay. Mr. Stasiak talked about Strong. That's this small section right here that goes from Chickasaw all the way down to South Street. And that's an 8-inch line and a 6-inch line. That small line right there is nearly $1 million just by itself. Okay. All the lines at the upper end, the north end, this is your main feed coming from the water plant itself. This is your larger lines, your 20-inch lines, your 24-inch lines, your 18s, your 16s. There's a lot of old lines up there that needs to be replaced. Okay, some of that pipe is laying on top of the ground, believe it or not.
Well, let me ask you something, Mayor.
You bet.
What about, and of course, we're going back old school for a while. Some of these guys probably was in diapers, but Dudley and Associates had done a lot of work in this town. I mean, we spent millions. Where's all that? And I was on the council. That's the reason I know about them doing all this extra.
I do know back when we were doing the CIP projects 1, 2, and 3. I think that was all there was 3. I do know we replaced the line down Monroe. Okay. I do know there was some work done back then, and but when you look at the scheme of things, it's in there, yes, but it's
minuscule.
It's insignificant, yes.
Okay. Well, I know the voters approved a lot.
Yes, you did.
And
Believe it or not, I was a contractor back then, and I actually put those line in on a lot of those down 6th Street, down Monroe, a lot of those streets. And we did put new water line and new sewer lines when we did street projects back then.
All right. Okay.
And we also did when we did CIP 4 about, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 years ago down 6th Street. If you look at that map, down on South Street, this was a CIP project, and this was a water line that we did that street down there by the school,
Okay.
and the water line was done at that point. But as you can see, that was one project.
It's just one deal.
It's a small section.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is pretty representative of what's going on. 7 years and we got this much accomplished versus what's on the board to be done. So I concur with what Councilman Stevens said earlier, that this council is going to have to make some hard decisions in the near future. And we're going to have to make some priorities, and we're going to have to make some trade-offs to be able to get after that. That is a massive undertaking for any community. But with our debt load, it's even more of a burden. And so the first step is to identify it, which we've done. Now we've got to prioritize based on need. And if any one of those main feeder lines go down, we're out of business. It doesn't matter if, Strong is working or not, or some of these other ones. we've got to keep the water coming into the city and to the major portions of the city. So to me, that's where we start, and we need a plan. And to me, it needs to be built into the capital improvement plan on how we're going to address it. And then we need to be innovative. You know, Eufaula just recently
I was gonna
got
bring
a
that up too, yeah.
you know a small interest loan for $7.5 million to replace their system, plus a $1.5 million grant.
Right.
That would go a long ways.
And we're looking into that currently. So, in fact,
Yeah.
Mr. Burke just brought that to us.
Yep.
That could as well. And this is what I'm getting at, and this is a very good deal here. And thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate this. Where the city employees have talked about a lot of things that keep them up at night, because I know they're having to fix this more often than not, even if it's small things at times. But what I see there, and maybe I'm wrong, and please correct me if I am, but I don't see any of that in the CIP, and that worries me. You know, I'm not going to say that anybody here is doing a bad job. I'm not going to say that. But what scares me is the information that we don't get here on council, like this kind of stuff that helps inform big decisions that we make here. I fully trust city staff with a lot of things, the majority of things. I believe if I call Pete and I ask him a question, he's going to tell me the truth and tell me exactly what's going on. But this here, compared to this here, is staggering. And this is why it's so important to have good people in good positions that can continue to help make this. But we also have citizens that are really, really concerned. This whole last time, and I'm no different than most young families, we boiled water the whole time because I was afraid to give any water to my daughter. I am also still scared to give her any water now. That shouldn't be the case. There's lots of people that don't have that option. We need to do better, and we need to come up with better plans and be creative. You know, I don't know if there's a cap on so many of the grants that we do in these low to moderate income area. I know that we do them every year, and I believe we do a great job with coupling them. But why can't we go for more? And I'm sure we're looking at that, so I don't want to say it's
Appropriated by
not.
the
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
Okay.
But from my understanding as well, though, don't they give larger grants to help with more of that stuff
For
too?
communities under populations
Yeah.
of 6,000, absolutely.
So
They're limited by population. They're limited by a number of different things. And to think that these grants are just out there flowing everywhere, federal and state grants, is no longer existing.
I know they're very competitive.
You know, I'm glad you brought up and talked about this $1.5 million grant. Mr. Burke brought that to us today. We're going to go after that aggressively, but these are few and very far in between.
No, and I know they were competing with 100,000 other cities our size,
Yep.
so I understand that. But nobody's coming to save us.
Right.
Nobody's going to ride in on a white knight and save us from this. This is something that we as a community have to address to make hard decisions, and we're not doing it up here. We're just not. And we got to do better. And that's why I want to have this discussion. We have to do better and not just say this one time and then wait till the next water line break and then I put it on the agenda again because I'm just as guilty. But this is wrong. The CIP is wrong compared to that. We need to have a better input and do better.
Councilman, this is why we are aggressively.
Oh, I understand. I know that you guys are repairing this and doing everything you can. We're making great improvements. But what I'm saying is that we're not doing a good job as a council, not as city staff, but as a council, providing action and direction and where we need to go in more spending in this water issue because it's not there right now.
Councilman Smith next.
Well, the hard news is that this is all dependent on money. And we carry, what is our debt now? 50 million, 60 million?
Right around
We've got
60.
that. It's taken off 5 or 6 million off the top every year to service. So the hard fact is, and you were right, I think, Kelly, nobody's going to ride to our rescue. We may get an occasional grant, but basically it comes down to raising all the money that we need to do this. Right now, you know, the Audit and Finance Committee kind of triggered it, but we have city staff who've been looking at our water rates and our sewer rates. Turns out we've been selling water for less than it costs to make it, which is crazy. It also turns out that we're one of the lowest rates, you know, among our sister cities. So, you know, if we're going to do this, and I think part of the reason, you know, we haven't hopped right on it is lack of funding. But we've got to decide, you know, if we need an extra 20 million, 30 million, what do we have to have with our water and sewer rates to pay for that? And are we willing to impose reasonable rates on our citizens? And it would be reasonable rates.
Okay.
But we've been running a charitable organization for years on many things. It's like our landfill. We had landfill rates that were charitable. Right now we've got water and sewer rates that are charitable. So we have to decide, are we willing to actually charge what it costs us to do these services, and thereby get enough money to start doing some of this work.
Councilman Pritchard, you were next.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, no. How much does it cost, like for the water line coming from the water treatment plant into the city, the main transmission lines? Do you know how much it would cost to replace those?
I do.
Will you
I just
tell
don't
me?
have it with me. I just don't have it with me now. One thing I like to bring up, that's a very good point. Okay, what we were contracted to do was first identify. Okay, next is to prioritize, and then the next is to give you cost estimates of what we need to do. Okay, that engineering report that we are going to be putting together will define all that information for you. Okay, we brought this up because we wanted you to know we are working on it. Okay, we are taking a look at it, so you can start thinking about how we're going to fund this thing, or do we fund this thing? What do we do? I'm going to provide the information.
Councilman Cox.
You got a question?
No, I got Councilman Cox next. Then I got
Okay.
then I got Councilman Stevenson.
Two things. Sticking our head in the sand and ignoring it is no longer going to work. We've got to address it. It's reality is now. We have to do something. And if it means having running water when I wake up to go to work versus having potholes, I'm going to choose running water. And if it means having running water or a recycling center, I'm going to choose running water. And that's what, when I said earlier, we're going to have to make some hard decisions and make some trade-offs. If it means that we're going to have to take money from some of these other projects and apply to this, that's what we've got to do as a body. My question is just the 24-inch feeder line coming into the city. You know, you said it was questionable. What's the contingency plan if that fails tonight?
We switch over to the 30-inch line immediately. But what happens if we have a break in the 30-inch line? Now, the 30-inch line's in pretty good shape, but we have had problems with it in the past. So, yeah, we have the ability to switch back and forth.
Okay.
The concern is what happens
when you put the load on the
bigger one.
Yep.
Yeah, and you add that additional pressure and everything.
Right. What happens if we lose both?
Yeah. What happens at that point is once you drain the clear well at the plant, then all of the pressure is taken off of the entire city, and the city back drains to the break at the water plant. And we actually had that happen several years ago when that big 24-inch line broke. The city everything drained from the city back to that break.
So we have a dry system.
Absolutely.
Which is a disaster.
And we went completely dry that time. Drained every water tower and every pipe in the city was drained.
Okay.
And when that break happened, that's why this is blue.
That's why we priced that.
Now, it's not much, but
right.
Vice Chair Stevens.
Look, Councilman Harrison.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Harrison.
We've got a mall that's going to be coming in. What is going to be the situation with their water? And there's supposed to be some possibly restaurants that are going to be part of that mall complex. How will this, they're going to need water. So what's your insight on that or input on that?
At the current time, there's plenty of water out there.
Okay.
Okay. Again, when you have line breaks, it's going to hurt every business owner out there.
Now, are there going to be new water lines out there since it's going to be a mall or what? What's the status
No,
on that?
the main line that goes out there is adequate. Now they'll be putting new lines to their stores.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but the main feeder line's good.
What do you mean they? Who's they?
The mall itself.
Oh, the mall itself.
They're
They're going to be installing their own lines.
The developer.
The developer.
On site lines. months.
What about sewer lines? Will they be doing that also?
There's also a main line out in front of the property, so they'll be taking that into their stores.
All right. But the water will be coming from McAlester.
Yes.
That would be part of the city. Okay. All right.
And the city has excess capacity and the existing water lines to take care of that
To provide
facility.
for that facility.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. On the study you're putting together, Mr. Burke,
Yes, sir.
are we going to be actually able to see what the demand of those lines are?
We will.
Okay.
That's
I
what
mean, I know the main
hydraulic
feeder
model
line.
will be.
That's all of us. I get that. But
No,
I mean, is that
we are actually doing a model of the entire system itself.
okay? So if we see that this one line here feeds 5,000 residents and we need to replace it, we'll be able to say it's going to cost $3,500
That's
a resident.
that's correct,
basically.
and the model will let us know, is that line adequately sized now. You know, one of the worst things you can do is say there's an 8-inch line now. Let's put in an 8-inch line, and five years from now you'd say, oh, that should have been a 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the hydraulic model is really good.
Okay.
Good for.
Okay. Good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just more of a thought because I just continue to talk, but I'm glad to hear that we've got some progress going on that, and I'm glad to hear that we're angling that way and going that way. But just to reiterate and just kind of talk through what Councilman Smith just said, and I don't disagree. We're going to have to make hard decisions, and we're going to have to talk about raising rates and lowering and increasing things and doing things here. But it would almost be criminal for us to raise water and sewer rates and not have a better plan in place to replace these things. So as we continue to go forward, we're going to have to make hard decisions. I completely agree with Councilman Cox. That's a great point. Thank you.
When you do the study, is it going to have an age of the
lines itself? No, that doesn't go into a mathematical model. That's more boots on the ground to go out and actually talk to the people that's out there digging up the lines, repairing them, what kind of conditions is the line in, and everything else.
Yeah, because what's the life of a PVC?
PVC, I mean, you know, they'll say 50 years, but you know as well as I do, plastic don't deteriorate when it's underground.
Yeah.
You know, ductile iron does. That's what the problem we have is it's ductile iron, and we got some soils that are very corrosive. Any type of ferric material you put in the ground, it's going to corrode.
However,
However,
that last break was a plastic line, right?
It was.
It was 25 years old.
Was it a break or did the valve pull off?
It's split.
It was
There
a split.
3-foot split in the top of the pipe.
Now,
Of course, it might have been damaged when they put it in the ground.
plastic pipe is more susceptible to water hammer and things like that because it don't have the strength of a PVC line. Okay, and if the line split, I'm going to say it was probably a pressure issue.
Go ahead.
What caused our last break?
We have no idea whatsoever. That was a line that was a dead end line. It was back behind the old golf course. It was a line that I believe was put in to take care of a potential housing, and was there for 25 years.
So it was a line that was put in that was never tapped for a housing development? Or?
No, it was just a line that.
Okay, because so there was no lack of pressure, no pump ran dry at the water plant, and then we got a big spike of pressure. Okay, I had heard.
What have you heard?
Well, I had heard that someone fell asleep at the water plant and allowed there be more issues. So there's no truth to any of that either, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better too.
Hydraulically speaking, okay, you got pressure release valves throughout the system itself. They're called water towers. Water towers will overfill before you break your pressures. Okay.
All right.
Now,
thank you, guys.
That's my 2 cents worth.
Councilman Pritchard.
I think as we do this, it's going to be important to not just understand the cost, but also like the value that these investments could return to our community. Because, you know, the way I see this, part of the reason we have this problem, part of the reason that we have problems with holes in the road and, you know, water treatment and sewer treatment plants needing to be upgraded is less a function, part of a function, but less of a function of us not spending enough and more of it just costing a whole lot of money. We've got, I mean, the example from the recent water break is a great example. We have a bunch of water pipe in the ground that serves zero, like literally zero useful purpose. And we have a lot of that throughout the community that may not serve zero, but serves a very low purpose. That's why it's the comprehensive plan over here is so important, because it encourages us to grow in a manner that is going to be more physically responsible and make better use of the infrastructure investments that we do make. With all that being said, this seems like to me that this is something that is going to require a large amount of capital up front. And, you know, regardless of our current bond debt, I don't know the current amount we have. I don't know that we can any longer sit by and say that we can't take on any additional debt. I mean, I think this is going to be something that we're going to have to acquire additional bond debt to help pay for, or not to pay for, but to make some of these improvements, you know, relatively soon, within the next few years, if not sooner. And we're going to have to look at additional revenue sources to fund those, if that's proper utility rates, if that's collecting a millage from the property tax, which I don't know if we've ever done. Maybe that's doing things like repurposing the stormwater fee into some sort of fee that could be pay for some of this bond debt. But we're going to, I don't feel confident or comfortable, you know, throwing $1 million a year at that board. Because how much did you say that board cost?
14 million.
Yeah. So just to do that, you know, is going to take the better part of a decade. I mean, that is something that if those needs are as urgent as we've been led to believe tonight, we should be making as soon as possible, or at least formulating a plan about how this community can fund those things and present that to the people.
Just to expand on that, that's another good deal about the hydraulic analysis we would be doing, is if we would find a line that is not being utilized at all, we can make a decision at that point whether to cap the line off or leave it in service. The hydraulic model would allow you that information.
Good.
The more information you got, the better. Is how I see it.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions, comments?
I'm excited.
You're optimistic then.
I'm a builder. Let's do it.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think once that's explained to the public, because nobody's gonna want their rates raised. You know, I've been there when they've done that, but we have no choice. Nobody wants to be home Saturday evening and can't get a shower any day. You know what I'm saying? That's what we experienced this last break.
You can't raise the rates enough to fix that.
No. We had to get some money from somewhere, banks or somewhere.
Bigger money than you can
Grants,
do with the rate
banks.
increase. We do have
There's a lot of charity.
the Audit and Finance Committee is looking at some things that will contribute to it. By no means will it
Get that.
make a huge dent in it, but it will contribute to it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to say this before we move on, if I can, real quickly. I mean, and I know that Infrastructure Solutions Group, or do you have a new name?
No.
Okay. Infrastructure Solutions Group is working on this, but this is something that, you know, this needs to be on our agenda. I don't know, maybe every month or every other month. This is not something that we should forget about. And I appreciate the work of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Absolutely.
And maybe they should be more involved in these meetings, but I don't want this to be something that this council, you know, forgets about until the next water break. I'm done.
I will keep it first and foremost.
Okay, thank you.
We will move to new business, any matter not known or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to time of posting the agenda in accordance with section 311.9, title 25 Oklahoma State statutes. Mr. Stazak, do we have any new business?
We do not, Mayor.
And let's go to your report.
The only thing that I have this evening that I want to add is the new website is up and running. It has 10 years of council agendas and minutes on it. It is very expansive. It is not completed. Okay, but it is up and ready for view. We'll be continuing to work over it over the next month to 2 months. Right? Okay.
Is that it?
That's it, Mayor.
All right. Remarks and inquiries by council. Councilor Smith, Vice Mayor Stevens.
Pete, I don't remember when it was. My memory's terrible. When are we putting out for bid, or have we already put out for bid the mowing of our right of ways and the highways and things like that?
No, we had that discussion. I think it was last week. I think we're prepared.
Okay.
We'll be doing that very, very soon.
Okay. Great.
I'll get you a full update on that at the next council.
That's fine. That's fine. Since you and Mr. Ridenhour are here, can you give us an update on the strip mall that's going out on the highway too, how their plans are proceeding?
You mean the mall?
Sure.
The shopping center.
Sure. Go ahead.
The shopping center. Yeah, they were in last week. Mr. Burke was actually here. They're about 2 weeks away from having all their civil plans completed. Good. Which is the fine tuning of all the dirt work, the calculations, all those type of things. What he did is he kind of jumped the gun a little bit. He brought in crews to start clearing and do the rough grading just so that the community would see that something's happening. They got that completed in a timely manner. They'll be submitting the civils. The civils, once they're approved, will go forward. The banks will release the money. He'll be bringing the crews in to start the rest of the work.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's still proceeding.
Thank you for asking that. The world, we've got a lot of dirt moving experts in the city of McAlester. I can tell you that. Councilman Cox.
Pete, can you tell me when the intersection of C and Ottawa will open back up? That was closed about 2 months ago to a water break, and it has remained closed since then.
I don't have an answer for you, but I'll find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Brown.
Oh, thank you.
Councilman Harrison.
First of all, I would like to thank Girl Scout Troop 78 that came and was in attendance for the proclamation of the Women's History Month. And then the gentleman to my left, I was at an event, the McAlester High School ASU, and he received a Lifetime Achievement Award along with Mr. Primus Moore and the McAlester ASU. They're going to make a scholarship that will be honoring both these gentlemen in the future, so high school students will be able to have a scholarship. And also, I would like to ask City Attorney Mr. Irvin if he would mention something about the train situation. My people in my ward, Ward 5, the blockage, the blast, that still continues. So could you just help us with that statement, please?
Some of your questions.
Yes.
And I can tell you that there is no end of regulation of those railroads, both federal. They have federal regulations that apply. It is under the Oklahoma Corporation Commission for state regulation, and then the city has its regulation. The state legislature has passed a law recently that may or may not be enforceable. Says they will not block the intersection for more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then it's subject to all these regulations. As far as the regulation dealing with sound, blowing their horns coming through the they have the right under federal regulation to do that, but apparently the feds have outsourced that to the state. But they also say that it lends to or leads to the no enforcement. So because it gives the railroad company the authority to either sound their horn or not sound their horn. And there are quiet zones established, but whether they're enforced or not is pretty much a matter for the railroad company. For that reason, I haven't given you a simple answer. The more we dig, the more we find that there are other entities involved in the regulation of the complaints with your constituents, which are blocking the railroad intersection or the sound.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's what it is at the present time. We can probably get you somebody to complain with the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, and I would suggest that that'd probably be the place that you would start.
Okay. Well, thank you. I had to ask because it continues.
Well, I know you've asked me several times,
Yes.
and
That's
every time we get your inquiry, we start looking, but all we do is turn up more entities that are involved. So it's not a simple matter.
May I ask one quick question? Have you found any? Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. Have you found any cities that have had a success with these
I
issues?
haven't inquired
You haven't?
of
Okay.
any other cities.
All right. Okay. Well,
I'm
thank you.
assuming they all have the same problem we do,
Okay.
but I haven't asked.
All right. Well, thank you.
State statute that he referenced has 21 exemptions in it as to when they can block the intersection. So
They do it every day, all day long.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
21 exemptions means if there's a bird flying by, they can block it essentially.
I know. I've seen the bird.
Yeah. Council Pritchard.
Pete, what's going on down 2nd Street?
Tomorrow. We had a
Really?
contractor that pulled out of the job. The manhole's supposed to be here tomorrow. Is that correct? Along with with a new contractor. So what's happening there is there were 3 manholes. We're putting in 1 manhole.
Okay. You think you'll start working on that tomorrow?
This week?
Is that what you said? You said tomorrow.
Weather permitting.
Hey, on the Tata Avenue streetscape, I've been meaning to say this for a while, but I'm afraid you're going to start planting trees soon.
We are.
There is one of those tree wells is right in front of the building that's currently Merle Norman.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it costs to move one of those things, but it's going to, I don't know. If you read much about urban trees, they should not be in front of the doors of businesses or houses. I mean, I think planting a tree there will be a big mistake. So I think we should either move it or not plant a tree in front of their business. I don't know if they've thought about it, but it's pretty clear that we should not plant. Like if you read up into urban trees, planting them in front of businesses is the door anyway. Is a very bad idea.
We'll go take a look at it.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. And my last thing is, has the city done any coronavirus planning?
We have not.
Okay.
There's a training tomorrow at 10:30 at the health department's putting on.
Okay.
Wash your hands.
I definitely am. Thank you.
All right, mayor's comments and committee appointments. We have been recognized as Tree City USA. The city of McAlester has been named a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation, distinction the city has enjoyed for 31 years. The recognition is given in honor of our city's commitment to effective urban forest management. McAlester achieves this status through the McAlester Tree Board, a tree ordinance, an annual community forestry budget, and at least $2 per capita, and an Arbor Day event proclamation. And Glenn Kearns, I think, you can go back. I think him and Saber Tate were the 2 that got this thing going. And,
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I guess, I don't know if it's good news, but it's a little bit of reassuring news. I think everybody's seen what the economy's been doing and what the stock market's been doing for the last week or so. The Audit and Finance Committee at a special meeting, we voted to take out at the top of the market. We took out enough money to pay the retirement obligations for the next 6 months in cash. So this pullback isn't going to force us to have to sell anything at the bottom. We sold it at the top and came out sitting pretty good on that. Okay, with that, I'll recess the council meeting. I would take a motion to convene as McAlester Airport Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from February 25th, 2020, regular meeting of McAlester Airport Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any discussion? Cordia, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I'd now take a motion to convene as McAlester Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from February 25th, 2020, regular meeting of the McAlester Public Works Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any discussion? Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we will now reconvene as McAlester City Council. I take a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilman Brown. Any discussion? Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Councilman Stevens, remember the word super chlorination.
That was good. Thank you. I've lost